organising this, Ijaz. So I think a big round of applause for our community leader here. So, yeah, there's 106 announcements to get through. I'm not going to do them all. I'm going to hand over to my very good colleague here and better-looking colleague, Danilo. I say this because I might ask him for some feedback in my review time, so flattery gets me everywhere. So we're going to go through and just going to start off with some numbers about reInvent this year. It was huge. It was massive. We had over 50,000 attendees. We had 100,000 people registered on the live stream, and that was just the normal live stream. On top of that, we also had Twitch TV. You've probably seen some of the stickers around, twitch.tv/AWS. And we had, certain times, we had 10,800 people on the live stream, all chatting away and watching what was going off. On there as well, we had exclusive announcements. We did some launches on there, especially around the container stuff, which I'll talk about in a bit. So it was really, really active. I think I did 26 hours worth of moderation, I worked out. So yeah, I've gone slightly crazy in my time over in Vegas, but I'm recovering slowly. This is actually the second of 6 events I've got this week, doing this sort of recap announcement. So it's going to be a little bit better than last night, that's all I can say. There's our question, 2,100 technical sessions at reInvent. That's the sort of scale that was going on. It went really well this year as well. We had, instead of putting everything all in one venue, all containers and serverless in the ARIA, it was actually spread out, and it made it a lot easier for our customers to get through and go to lots of events. So over 100 services and features announced at reInvent. The actual official number is 106. So there's a lot of stuff that myself and Danilo didn't even know was coming, but we learnt about it at the same time as you. Our job is to kind of digest that very, very quickly and give it back to you guys here. So yeah, here's a web page. I'm just going to go back there and let you watch that again. This is all the announcements on the website broke up into area. I'll give you the URL for this at the end. Actually, I think it's on your slides, Danilo, but yeah, we'll go through that later. So firstly, Ijaz touched on this at the beginning. So the state of AWS Cloud. We've got millions of active customers, and this year was a 27 billion run rate. It's a 46% year-on-year growth. So we're growing rapidly and fastly. And if you look at the percentage of cloud adoption, we've got 51.8% of the share. So it's one of those old sayings that nobody ever got fired for using AWS, I think. You've heard that with several other companies in the past, I'm sure. But it's one of the go-to solutions. And that's really because we've got a really, really broad range of services. And we're quite proud of that broad range of services. And we're always iterating on it. And that's kind of what reInvent is about. So the biggest driver for innovation at AWS is customer feedback. So if any of you have ever got any questions or want to see something changed, reach out to us. We always feed it in. Myself and Danilo feed it back into the service teams. Reach out to your solutions architects, your account managers. Tell us. The more of you who tell us, the more likely we're going to prioritize it and make it happen quickly. So keep that feedback coming. It's really important to how we innovate at AWS. So like I said, we've got one of the broadest and deepest platforms for today's builders. We've got a lot of services out there. Before reInvent, it stood at 124. Danilo, do you know what the count is now?
No, I don't remember the number.
Yeah, I lost count. Somewhere in the middle of a Vegas haze, I lost count. But we've got a lot of services out there. And this is our famous sign of all the different services. This is actually updated, so if someone's really quick at counting, no, I'm joking. I'm going to flick over in a minute. This has got a lot of the things in that we do. It's split into areas for ease. It's one of those things, you come to the AWS console and there's a lot of stuff to learn, but you're probably only interested in a small section for the job you're doing. However, you've got potential to go further. And as customers, you've got potential to innovate and move further as well. So I'm going to kick off with some of the announcements that were made by Andy Jassy and Werner. So I think Werner should be a single name, shouldn't he, rather than Vernon Vogels. I think he's progressed to like Madonna or Cher status now, in my eyes anyway. So we're going to talk about the global infrastructure updates, and we're growing. We're adding more regions. If some of you saw in 2020, we're going to have a Cape Town region. We've also announced Bahrain, Stockholm, another one in China, a second. What's that? Which one? Is it on there? Hey. Oh yeah, somewhere like that looks like a shape of a boot in Europe.
In the south.
Italy, that's it. Yeah. Daniela's particularly proud of that. But also we've got quite a lot of POP locations, and our POPs are where CloudFront exists, or where some of the global transit network exists to speed up access into AWS services. So there's over 150 of those now. There's 89 direct connect locations. So as you can see, we're spreading out, and we're getting more and more. And this is backed by a global fiber network that is redundant everywhere apart from China, where we can't get extra fibers in at the moment. But it's a redundant 100 gigabit Ethernet network. I got that right. And it's private redundant capacity as well. So it's us using it and us using it alone. So that's how we send everything around the globe very, very quickly. I think there was a big thing at reInvent last year about how we'd managed to get maximum network efficiency, and the only thing holding us back was the speed of light to transfer down this fiber. So yeah, we're doing our best. Now, we announced Global Accelerator. Global Accelerator is a way to improve performance, getting data in and out of AWS and into your regions. It's improved performance, it's got fault tolerance, and you've also got control to direct your traffic to different regions around the world. So if you're not familiar with AWS, a region is a geographic location, such as London or Dublin, Frankfurt, the US East in Ohio. That's East, isn't it? No, that's West. My geography in the US is not good. And within a region, you've got multiple availability zones. And these availability zones you can use within region for fault tolerance. Now, before we had Global Accelerator, when you connected to AWS Cloud, you hit your local ISP, and your traffic would get bounced all over the internet, get routed round, and eventually end up at your AWS region. Oh, hello. I've got some more power coming in here. And we'd hit AWS region. Now, that could affect performance because we weren't in control of this. There wasn't any dedicated path down to the AWS region. So if one of these ISPs was performing slowly, it wasn't a great experience for your users. Now, after the Global Accelerator has been rolled out, and we've got lots of ISPs linked into our backbone on this now, when you hit your ISP, you travel directly to the AWS region over our fiber. And that gives you a very, very smooth and fast, low latency access into the AWS network. So this will improve performance for your customers, and it'll improve performance for you getting data in and out of AWS. We also back this with Transit Gateway. Transit Gateway, it's a way of changing how you access your VPCs and how you mesh them together. So before Transit Gateway came out, if you had multiple accounts and multiple VPCs, you could do routing at certain levels. You could never hop through a VPC to another VPC, for example. But the routing was quite complex, quite hard to do. And if you had VPN connections coming in, you had to build the route tables up yourself. What Transit Gateway is aiming to assist is to become a hub in this. So think of it as a great big global router. Not only will it allow you to connect your VPCs together and your direct connects and your customer gateways and route the traffic in the most efficient form to where it's supposed to get to, you can do other pretty cool things, such as allow ingress for data through one VPC, but have all the egress through another VPC. So you can control it down to a packet level on there, which is kind of smart technology. So this is a little bit of a different order to we normally do, because Danilo is going to take serverless at the end as I run across the road. Well architected. Who here uses a well architected framework? I like it. So the well-architected framework is a set of best practices. It's based around lenses. We call them lenses. So there's a lens for serverless, for example. There's a new IoT lens that's just come out. And it's about how you build your application and how you can build it to best practices to reduce your cost, increase your security, and your availability and scale. So there's lots of things in there. It's really, really good. And I'm actually wearing the well-architected badge today because I'm being paid by Fitz to wear it. He owes me a beer now. So the well-architected framework actually came out in 2012, and we've built upon it as we go along. So AWS Solution Architects Reviews came along in 2013. We then built up a simple question survey that you could go through and answer, and we'd give you a score on how well architected you were depending on your answer. Then we kind of started updating it. Operational excellence came into play. And then we added last year the serverless lens, the high-performance computing lens, and we also allowed partners into this ecosystem. So there's partners such as Steamhouse in the UK, they're based up in Manchester. They can do well-architected reviews for you, so they can come through. And Rackspace, who are sponsoring tonight, who do an excellent job, may I add. And in 2018, we've just added the IoT lens. Now, if you want to know more about this, head over to this URL here. It's a really, really good resource. And speaking as a techie who used AWS a lot before I came to work for AWS over a year ago, this is one of the most useful resources I've ever found. So sometimes reading white papers can be a little bit dry. This is actually quite interesting. You read this, you're like, I get it. That's why I'm doing it this way. So I'd recommend anybody interested in architecting on AWS definitely have a look at this. What do you think of the serverless bit, Danilo? Hey, I love the Italianness of that. So, the well-architected pillars of performance: operational excellence, security, reliability, efficiency, and cost optimization. So they're the bits we focus in and drill down on. And if you look at your reviews there, solutions architects can do this, or you can engage a partner to go a little bit deeper and do some recommendations after. So it's a useful thing. If you're building a business and you want to make sure you're doing everything best and you've not got the in-house expertise, do reach out to us, and we'll either put you in touch with a partner or solutions architects can help you as well. So this was a new announcement at reInvent. I think this was in Werner's reInvent. Yes, it was. So we announced a well-architected tool. And this tool basically analyzes your account, and then you can drill down into that analysis and have a look in different areas how well-architected you are. So it'll take into account looking at things like your EC2 instances and making sure you're cost optimized, making sure the security is there and the performance is there and they're not struggling. And it can do this by looking at all the different components that come out through CloudWatch through CloudWatch logs and the monitoring metrics. It's a pretty cool tool, and it makes it easy.
Is it integrated into Trusted Advisor?
So the question was, is it integrated into Trusted Advisor? To be honest, I'm not sure. I should imagine it's built on the back because there's some very similar components. It probably enhances on that and bolsters up what comes out. I know that they've done a lot of work on it from the ground up, so it's pretty cool. Right, some more announcements. Storage. So first of all, let's look at the storage options you've got in AWS today. When I say today, I mean last week. Everything changes always. So there's a lot of things. We've got block storage.
Just a quickie here. Look, there's going to be a lot of announcements. If you've got any questions to ask, feel free to ask while Rick's talking. Yeah? You don't have to wait until the end.
Yeah, do just ask questions if you've got them. Wave at me, and I might be able to see you. Yeah, so block. This is things like EBS, for example. There's SSD versions of EBS volumes now. You've still got the magnetic ones hanging around in some places. And you've got provisioned IOPS. So that's you can actually pay to have faster access to the disk. We've got elastic volumes, so you can actually grow a volume now. I remember when I started EC2, that would have been wonderful to have. So you can dynamically reassign the size of a volume, which is awesome. And then you can do things with Lifecycle Manager. So you can choose when backups are created, when they're retired, and where they exist. Now, my favorite service in the world was object storage, S3. It's super simple. You just throw data in and pull it out as and when you need it. The amount of plugs that come on the top, so you can host websites from it. You can now trigger Lambda functions. And it's brilliant. So there's lots in there, and we've built on that. There's infrequent access as well. And we've got file storage, EFS, which is an NFS system, basically. And then we've got lots of data transfer, including snowballs, which you have on your data center. So we announced intelligent tiering. I'm going to just drill down on two of these. Intelligent tiering. This is basically, you can put data into S3, and we'll move it between infrequent access and regular access to save you money, depending on how often it's accessed. So this will save you money over time, and it's automatically done for you and driven by machine learning. The other big one, which a lot of people like, is the SFTP for data transfer. You connect this up, it sits in front of an S3 bucket. You can SFTP in with your traditional tools or the command line. It's a pretty cool feature, and it's really simple to deploy. Right, I'm going to try and speed up now. We've now got Amazon Glacier Deep Archive as well. So this is an even cheaper version of Glacier. It's super, super, super cheap. If you have a look, it's less than a quarter the cost of standard Glacier. There's slightly longer pullback times for the data, but it will save you a lot of money if you've got to archive for a long time. Now, if we look at data lakes is something that a lot of people are doing on AWS now because of all those storage options. But it's quite a complex thing to build. So we announced Amazon Lake Formation. And this is a wizard-driven, for want of a better term, approach to actually setting up, storing and cataloging all your data, and then putting security policies across there and getting insights out of that data in the end. So it's a super easy way to pull all your data together, put it into a data lake, and then access it, rather than you having to build all those steps manually. Now, other announcements as well. We have lots of Windows users on AWS. So we announced, I can never say this, FSX for Windows file server. This is a Windows native file server, so you can attach storage to it very, very easy. There's no software or hardware to manage of any other particular storage services that you may run on AWS. And it's super fast, tens of gigabytes throughput. We also announced the same for Lustre, which is a high volume, high access, hundreds of gigabytes and millions of IOPS file system that you can use on POSIX systems. There's seamless integration with S3 as well. Now, that really changes that landscape that we had before. We've got lots of new ways to transfer data in and out. So lots of updates there. Now, I've got to remember now, because I've got a question to ask. I don't know if it's the next slide or not, because this isn't in the mode where I can see the next slide coming up. I'm going to talk about some technologies in a minute. I'm going to talk about some of the new technologies for compute and particularly containers. But does anybody know the name of the service of the software we launched that sits, you're not allowed to answer, that sits underneath Lambda and under Fargate containers?
Firecracker?
There you go, Firecracker. So here we go, second prize of the night. There you go, my friend. Excellent. I'm going to talk about Firecracker in a minute. Well done. I've got security and hybrid first. So I don't know what order these slides are coming in.
At the end.
It's right at the end, yeah. So security, we announced two new features. Control Tower. Control Tower is a way of basically organizing all your AWS accounts together and having policies enforced across multiple accounts. It's a centralized place for controlling your AWS accounts and infrastructure. We've also got Security Hub, which is a similar thing, so you can roll out updates to security groups and IAM policies from one centralized place to multiple accounts. Super useful tools when you're in large organizations. Also VMware on AWS. So earlier back in back in the year, we announced that you'd be able to run RDS on VMware, so you'd be able to run it in your own data center. Very, very easy to do. We're making that go further, and you'll be able to run more services on VMware. Now, we've got a few customers doing this. I'm going to skip through that. But the big announcement was we're going to have our own hardware. AWS Outpost. So if you've got particularly sensitive data loads that you can't put into cloud anywhere because you're in a highly regulated industry, you can actually have on-premise hardware to process that data. And this will basically extend AWS into your data center. The control plane still lives in AWS, but your data and the processing of that data lives in your data center. So Danilo doesn't like this because he's Mr. Serverless, and he doesn't want to be able to touch servers. Got a question over here.
What's the cost model for that? That hardware belongs to that, is it?
So the question was, what's the cost model for that? To be honest, I don't know. I learned about this when it was announced at reInvent, so I'm not quite sure of the cost model for this yet. I know it's basically a pre-announcement, so there won't be anything set in stone yet. So it'll be coming soon, is all I can say, and they'll announce at the time of launch what the cost for this is going to be. Cool. Yeah, it's pretty cool, though, and I'm looking forward to EU West, my house, as a availability zone. Well, if I have one in my garage and one in my house, I can have 2 availability zones in my region. That's what I'm going for. Do you think Ian will sign it off? Probably not. Yeah.
Hardware can run. There will be different type of hardware for the different AWS instances. For example, if I want an F1, can I get an F1?
I'm not sure how that's going to work, but I think you'll be able to run multiple instance types on that hardware. So it's going to be a configuration option between whether you're giving it more CPU or more RAM, depending on what instance type it is.
Messaging perspective, you have your own fabric. Does it come with your fabric?
I don't know yet. Like I say, it's a pre-announcement. We'll find out more as you do, probably. That's how they tell us, isn't it? So we've got a family of different hybrid options. Now, computing update. Here we go. So lots of computing instances released recently. We recently announced the AMD processors, and I'm going to just dive in. 175 different instance types now, so I doubt you'll get them all in that Outpost thing, but it'd be nice. We announced also the new M5Ds, R5Ds, Z1s, and C5Ds. This gives you really low latency to your block storage. Super useful for like HPC loads with lots of data that's going to be going through. And we also announced the M5As and R5As, which are AMD powered. Now, the one that excited me most was this, the EC2 A1 instances. These are ARM-based processors, so these are ARM processors in here. And it's actually custom AWS silicon called the Graviton processor. 45% cheaper than running other instance because it's lower power and it's pretty cool stuff. So it's going to be great for things like fan-out applications where you've got lots of processors running in parallel. Network performance has steadily increased as we've gone along, and we now go up to the 100 gigabits in there. So there's a lot of network speed improvements there. The EC2 C5N instances are the ones that support the 100 gigabits of network throughput. Super, super fast. And HPC computing on those are going to be like awesome. They're going to be super stable, super fast, and process lots of data very quickly. The Elastic Fabric Adapter. So basically, this is a way of adding a fabric adapter to any type of instance that's running. This is one of the things I probably know the least about, and you might cover this in your AI section.
This is really for HPC, so it's providing an MPI interface. So if you do HPC and you want to do datagram transfer, so you're avoiding TCP IP and going through the kernel, so you want to have very low latency, then this is the interface to use. No,
I think it's InfiniBand. I heard that mentioned by Ronan the other day. So
I'm not sure, but so the latency is very low and it's based on MPI interface. What's underneath, I'm not updated. So.
Not sure. So containers. I do know a bit about containers. It's what I normally talk about. So we announced a service mesh. And just to explain what a service mesh is very quickly, if you've got services that you want to connect together securely and automatically with failover, you add a sidecar to your container that's running, and it basically joins everything up. It handles routing, it handles monitoring and security between your containers within your cluster. So it's a super easy thing to do now. We announced App Mesh, and that will allow you to very, very easily fail over between different containers within ECS and EKS.
So does that provide any kind of SSL encryption or anything between containers?
It will encrypt workloads between containers, yes, absolutely. So we also announced Cloud Map, which is a way of basically cataloging your containers running. And traditionally, if you're swapping your front-end service, if this was a proxy, and you wanted to move to version 2, you'd have to put a code deployment out on the front end, and you might end up breaking things, or you might have a little bit of downtime as it swaps across. However, with Cloud Map, you basically update the catalog in Cloud Map, and the front-end service dynamically looks up version 2. It handles monitoring and health checks as well, so it makes sure that that fails over nicely into version 2, and it's a very smooth move. So I'm getting towards the last few containers of my slides of mine. The technology. We told you how we ran the technology that runs AWS Fargate and Lambda. So this is a nice segue into Danilo's stuff in a minute. When you build the infrastructure for this, we traditionally used EC2 instances to give you nice security boundaries with instances. It wasn't a particular efficient way for us to do it. The cost was on us, not you. But the different security boundaries, the only way we found to do that and not have it so you're sharing instances like other cloud providers do, the way to do this was to have a separate EC2 instance per task running. And it's not very efficient. It's costly. It's not high-density computing. So we announced Firecracker. Firecracker we rolled out about 3 weeks ago silently underneath things like Lambda. And some of you might have seen like a performance gain there of when launching things. In fact, I followed a tweet where someone says, is it me, or has this got really fast all of a sudden? So a little smile to ourselves. Firecracker is basically built on top of KVM, and it extends it. It wraps around networking and storage layers and security layers around there as well. It's very, very fast. You can launch, I believe it's 125 containers on an i3 metal.
No, I think thousands of
yes, 125
milliseconds is the
yes, 125 milliseconds, that's where I was going, yeah. I've got a demo which I don't have time for today. I might be able to come back and do a full session on that at some point, where you can basically launch 4,000 micro VMs in 56 seconds. So with networking as well. It's pretty smart. So it's a very fast way of us doing the rollouts for Lambdas and for Fargate for you. The big thing is it's available through open source. It is open source. You can download it and run it yourself if you want. You can run it on your own hardware. So that was a really big announcement that we've taken a real core piece of AWS infrastructure and management, and we've made that open source and pushed it out. And that's hopefully going to show you that we are very, very committed to open source. We're doing lots more. There's lots more moving forward that are going to come out as well. So we're committed to open source, and that makes me very happy. So that's the last one of my slides. After this, I can't even remember what else to say about this. We're going to move on to talk about Lambda next when Danilo comes up. So I'm going to move over to part 2. Yeah. And then I'm going to run to another venue to do the same thing again. Thank you very much.
Okay.